Our journey begins at the Mark Twain National Forest, and more specifically, the Cobb Ridge Campground in Chadwick, Missouri. The campground is spacious and shaded with plenty of room between sites. Our destination is George Washington Carver National Monument, a 94-mile excursion. George Washington Carver was born into slavery in Diamond Grove, Newton County, near Crystal Palace, now known as Diamond, Missouri, sometime in the early to mid-1860s. The exact date of his birth is uncertain and was not known to Carver. However, it was before slavery was abolished in Missouri in January 1865 and after the American Civil War. His master, Moses Carver, was a German-American immigrant who had purchased George's parents, Mary and Giles, from William P. McGinnis on October 9, 1855, for $700. At an early age, George Washington Carver suffered an injury which left his voice very high for the remainder of his life. This mural at the Visitor Center depicts Carver's journey from a young boy to a scientist to a teacher. This 1-mile self-guiding loop leads you into woodlands, across streams, and along a tall grass prairie. Here you can see the Boy Carver statue, the Moses Carver House, and visit the graves of Moses and Susan Carver. George Washington Carver is buried at Tuskegee University in Alabama. When explaining how he came up with over 300 uses for the peanut, George Washington Carver came up with a story. He asked the great creator, "Dear Mr. Creator, please tell me what the universe was made for." The great creator answered, "You want to know too much for that little mind of yours. Ask for something more your size." Then he asked, "Dear Mr. Creator, tell me what man was made for." Again, the great creator replied, "Little man, you are still asking too much. Cut down the extent of your request and improve the intent." So then I asked, "Please, Mr. Creator, will you tell me why the peanut was made?" George Washington Carver's life began here in this one-room cabin. He was always interested in plants. When he was a child, he was known as the plant doctor. He had a secret garden where he grew all kinds of plants. People would ask him for advice when they had sick plants. Sometimes he takes their plants to his garden and nurse them back to health. Here, almost hidden by time, is the hand-stack wall dating to the Civil War. George Washington Carver National Monument was the first national monument dedicated to an African American. The National Monument was founded on July 14, 1943, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, who dedicated $30,000 to the monument. The bronze sculpture of the Boy Carver was made by Robert Amendola in 1960. In his hand, Dr. Carver holds the flower amaryllis. Carver was motivated by his love for all of creation, which he developed on these very grounds. His connection to the earth and the great creator grew over his entire lifetime. After slavery was abolished, Moses Carver and his wife Susan raised George and his older brother James as their own children. They encouraged George to continue his intellectual pursuits, and Susan taught him the basics of reading and writing. This is the Carver house, where Moses and his wife Susan lived. George Washington Carver did not live here, but he was the occasional visitor. The Carvers had a 240-acre farm, all of which is now part of the National Monument. Inside the home, one can find displays and information on the farm, the Carvers, the plant life, and of course, George Washington Carver. I love to think of nature as an unlimited broadcasting system through which God speaks to us every hour, if we will only tune in. George Washington Carver. As a child, Carver learned how to draw and paint pictures. Although he switched to agricultural studies, Carver continued to paint all his life. One of his paintings won honorable mention in the 1893 Chicago World's Fair. The young Carver could draw on many inspirations to paint on the Moses Carver farm. The beauty of the great creator was all around him. This graveyard dates to antebellum times. It is the family graveyard of the Carvers. Buried here are Moses and Susan Carver and some of their relatives. Black people were not allowed at the public school in Diamond Grove. George decided to go to a school for black children 10 miles south in Neosho. Here at the Visitor Center, you can see a mock-up of that classroom. Later in life, Dr. Carver taught in a classroom similar to this at Tuskegee University. While at Tuskegee, Carver pioneered the use of agricultural demonstration wagons, commonly known as Jessup wagons. Carver not only drafted the plans for the wagons, but also selected the equipment, drew instructional charts, and suggested lecture topics to be delivered at each visit. In his own voice, listen to George Washington Carver recite the poem Equipment by Edgar A. Guest during his commencement address at Selma University on May 27, 1942.
Figure it out for yourself, my lad. You've all that the greatest of men have had. 2 arms, 2 hands, 2 legs, 2 eyes, and a brain to use if you would be wise. With this equipment they all began. So start for the top and say, I can. Look them over, the wise and great. They take their food from the common plate. And similar knives and forks they use, with similar laces to tie their shoes. The world considers them brave and smart, but you've all they had when they made their start. You can triumph and come to skill. You can be great if you only will. You're well equipped for what fight you choose. You've legs and arms and a brain to use. And the man who has risen great deeds to do began his life with no more than you. You are the handicapped, you must face. You are the one who must choose your place. You must say where you want to go, how much you will study the truth to know. God has equipped you for life, but he lets you to decide what you want to be. Courage must come from the soul within. The man must furnish the will to win. So figure it out for yourself, my lad. You are born with all that the great have had. With your equipment, they all began. Get hold of yourself and say, I can.